I'm Leanne Tran, psychologist who's worked with families whose kids don't fit the mould for almost 20 years. I've worked with children for decades, but I know parents are the real change makers when it comes to their kids. Having 3 kids of my own means I know it's not easy. Parent Like a Psychologist is all about simplifying how you support your kids with psychology information filtered through years of experience to take you from overwhelmed to confident. Come on in.
Knowing that there's things that you're just really good at that bring value to others. That's the most important thing. Like it must bring value to others because that makes us useful in society. It makes us useful in and helping others is fundamental. One of the qualities I enjoy the most is coaching other people. Right. And I coach others in public speaking and training and helping people with nerves or helping people with social anxiety or not knowing how to have conversations. And these are things I've developed along my way in my learning. And I find with my experience, I'm sure others who have ADHD, I tend to give a bit more time to people and listen to people or be more forgiving for people because they're the things that when I was growing up, I've always yearned to have another chance or, hey, like just hear me out. Or, those are things that, there's that saying that what we lack the most as a younger child, we tend to put a lot of value in as an adult. And, that I remember reading that once and I thought that makes a lot of sense. It's just those qualities of just not having just being quick to flip off for saying, you're an idiot, or no, you really messed that up. Or like, they're the things I also devote to my son, eldest son, and say, hey, try again. Like, it's okay. You made a mistake. It's all right. Try it again. And that's an important thing that I see as an important value in my life.
That's a really great lesson for parents as well, to think about extra time, extra chances, and understanding and empathy.
Yeah.
For their child.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Dan.
No, go for it.
I meant to imply that there's no bucks about it. It will be days where, as any parent knows, it's especially raising toddlers.
Yes.
But knowing that when I see my son, he will have a meltdown, and my understanding of just how their brain is developing and understanding that they have no brakes. There's no brakes in their motion. There's no like, okay, if I just apply the brakes a bit, I don't have to get, there's no self-soothing process.
Yeah.
And so it's as frustrating as it is at times. It's just knowing that he's got to burn that out. It's like, there's no rhyme or reason. There's no capacity to look at it from our lens as an adult. They just don't have that mechanism. And, that's an important thing, especially with the ADHD. It's just these intense emotions, these intense feelings of rejection, intense feelings of this shame that you have. You're an adult. You can talk to people like an adult, or you can talk to people like as a child. But then there's these weird impulses that you have no control over, and it's this weird jack in the box. Like, what's going to happen, right? It causes this anxiety of, like, you wish you had that control of the impulse. There's no filter in between. It's a bit like if you had a CEO and you had a PA, and the PA would be making sure whatever comes, the CEO would put out like a press release, but will go to the PA first, just to make sure, because they're the filter. And they're the ones that will go, okay, that's a bit, no, we won't go that press with that, or with no. But having ADHD feels like sometimes there's no in between. There's no like, you'll just come in and out like that. Interesting enough, when I work as a presenter, as a host, you'd think that would be a problem. But however, I have absolute fear of that happening.
Right.
That I'm extra conscious of that. Like, I'm extra conscious of that. It's an interesting thing how you have this, like, they call it like a survival mechanism, not survival mechanism, like coping mechanism. And adders tend to develop different coping mechanisms to get, around those weird, neurodivergent things that can get in the way of things.
Yeah. I'm interested about that because you've given some really good advice, I think, for what people around someone with or ADHD or ADA, as you call it, because I
Mm.
agree, I don't like the disorder word, and with empathy and patience and that kind of thing. But what strategies do you use to manage those things that, like you and your coach discussed, might not improve to the level that you'd wish they were?
Okay, social environments, I've become more confident in just in being more assertive in myself. And assertive
Hmm.
doesn't mean standing firm. It also means being transparent. It also
Yeah,
means being okay with your flaws.
right.
And before growing up, I used to be really anxious and awkward and fearful
Hmm.
about these weird things that will come out. And like it's like this, it's like a beach ball that you want to push down, and this thing will come up again. And I used to be really anxious and awkward about that. And sometimes, like now, I've learned through learning about assertive communication in just communication itself that it helps just being, yeah, that's me. Sometimes I can do that. Like sometimes, yeah, let me just, and it's just being okay with that, being okay with, hey, I guess that would have looked pretty unusual, or that would have sounded a bit left of field. Let me come back on that, and not being as so ashamed of it. Like it comes out, I'm like, oh my god, I've said something, and they're it just in social environments too. Sometimes people are like, oh, like if it's a loud space, and I'm talking to someone and I'm saying I'm finding it a bit hard to concentrate and like listen to you at this
Mm.
space. There's just a lot going on in this room. How about we step outside? Would that be okay? Otherwise, normally I'd be like trying to like listen and watch them, and there's just my brain is doing the best it can to filter out, but it can't. What's
Yeah.
happening there? And I think
No.
that's having little. I call them. I've learned them to be like duct tape phrases
Okay.
that can happen. Like in assertive communication, also is this thing called fogging. And fogging
Hmm.
means that if someone gives any criticism, just imagine if you're trying to have a fight with fog. You can't really
Right.
make contact or hurt fog. But fogging
Yeah.
is the way that when there's criticism, you say, yeah, that's about right, or yeah, some days I have those days, or someone will give you any criticism and say, and don't deny it, say it probably does look like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah, I guess I should look at that, or I guess, and it's not meaning that it means that you're not affected by that criticism, or you don't show any
Yeah.
effect that it bothers you. Being in my line of work, naturally being highly visible means that
Hmm.
there is every reason that people would want to have an opinion or a comment. And I've learned that again is just part of the setup of working in that domain, that
Yeah.
it'll attract that. That's the price, the ticket price to do this type of work. And it's
Mm.
learning how to have those techniques. I think that helps a lot. I wish I had a lot of those growing up, those techniques,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
learning that you will attract criticism, and that's not fair. It's not people should be nice and kind, but statistically, you will attract that. And knowing how to
Yeah.
handle those, so equipping my children as they grow up and understand the language and understand to speak is just how to handle criticism, how to
Mm.
handle, and it's not fighting it. Like a lot of assertiveness is not fighting it or pushing back, or it's just going, you're not affected by it. You hear them say that
Yeah.
and you acknowledge, yes, possibly looked like that, or it probably sounded like that. And sometimes I can be like that, but you just change the topic, and that's means it doesn't have any effect. And also children especially, I always wanted to see how kids react. Adults do it too,
Mm.
but the more we
Hmm.
kind of wriggle like quicksand, the more you're going to get stuck into that pattern of behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you're talking about having some duct tape phrases or
Yeah,
go-to things,
yeah,
but also it sounds like you're talking about with assertiveness, it's kind of being or having an approach where you're kind of really centered in confidently being
yes,
yourself.
that's absolutely
Yeah.
true. Yeah, and again, being yourself means that there are things about me that others may not like, and that's just the setup. The
Mm.
setup is that will be the case, but you know who you are, and also that comes with a sense of certainty,
Yeah.
about, especially like communication and communicating to large groups. Certainty is a powerful thing that an audience feels comfortable when they're listening to someone
Yeah.
who just feels not about what they're saying, but just certain in themselves. And there's a sense of that I'm vulnerable, open to all sorts of perspectives and opinions, and that's okay. Uh,
Yeah.
and um, and that's those. I think assertiveness training is not. Or I believe assertiveness training has helped me a lot in social environments, in my line of work, and also in
Hmm.
my own self image of who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's a bit of a theme of our conversation is getting to that place where that self-image is strong. And
Yeah, and no one
yeah.
else, like there'll be time. Look, yes, there'll be times where, depending on our mindset, depending on how multiple layers of things that could influence it, but when we do receive criticism, or someone will say something to us, we still are the final person to decide
Mm,
who we are, who we
yeah.
are, and it's important to remember that, like, there's no one else who can shape that dialogue except ourselves, and that itself oozes out of you when you walk into a room anyway. You know what you stand for, what your values are, what you won't stand for,
Yeah.
and that's another critical part of the emotional effect of like living with ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's been really, really useful listening to you talk because you have talked a little bit about the strategies, but it's also covered more deeply that those emotional components of wrestling with who we are, which is something that all people do, but I
Mm,
think it's definitely more prominent for those who don't fit the typical
yeah,
expectations. Yeah.
absolutely. And that's, again, it's just, and it's such an important thing, because we can get so, like, we were like our nerves, like, we feel it so intensely. That
Mm,
criticism, we're much more used to hearing more criticism than anyone other, I find, because of our failings and the way in which the brain works and does things, and these social gaffes that we might make, and how we feel ashamed and we'll bite our knuckle and go, oh gosh, right. We're used to that, tend to a lot. But also knowing that how we handle that is going to be an important part, and also reminding us who we are and what good we do.
mm, yeah. I think I have one final question, and I guess it's about you've mentioned your kids, two
Yeah,
under three. That's
yeah,
tough.
yeah. It is very tough. I won't lie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, lying doesn't help anyone, does it? Because
What's in you will come out of you. That's what I heard. So even if you are
yeah,
lying somehow,
somehow.
yeah.
But because we talked a little bit about how ADHD is um has a large genetic component as
Mm,
well. So I'm interested to, but yeah, so your children are young now. They may not kind of grow to be similar to
hmm.
you, but I'm interested in then because that means in my work where lots of parents are supporting kids with ADHD, they may have ADHD themselves.
Yes.
How does ADHD affect your parenting?
I think, okay, good question. My best description of parenting in itself is an intensifier. And if you
Okay.
imagine, like, on a sound engineering desk, you'll have all the different dials, all the
Hmm.
different levers, and you'll have like the treble and the bass, or you might have this instrument or that instrument. And then there's a master volume that turns everything up. And
Right.
I found that parenting is a massive intensifier of whatever is there.
Right.
As you can imagine, you might have, if you've got issues with money before you become a
Yeah.
parent, right? If you've got issues with how you communicate with your partner, if you have issues with your own self-worth, if you have issues with your in-laws, right? These are all things that will be intensified. And even with
Yeah.
ADHD, it will intensify those traits and characteristics of ADHD.
Mm.
I think my partner, my wife, incredible woman, and we've had such a challenging journey. Like, she's a cancer survivor, and when we were engaged, she was diagnosed, and we went through that journey of treatment and getting married at a drop of a hat, just to go through that journey. And we came out of that with our first son, which we didn't know was possible. We didn't know we could have children, and it
Yeah.
was an immense feeling of different levels of emotion. But in
Mm.
that time, those with ADHD can appreciate that when you're in a crisis, somehow we seem to be the people that people want to go to.
Yeah.
And that's this something that a small slither of our life. When there's a crisis as an ADHD, as a parent, I can be really calm, very, very calm,
Yeah.
very, very
Yep.
aware. Okay, let's not get, it's just like a laser beam. This is only what we need to focus on, like the 1 meter squared. Everything else is
Yep.
not relevant right now. And that also plays into role as when in my line of work, I work in events and a lot of things are happening, but when I'm under adrenaline, it switches on all of these parts, that prefrontal cortex that are usually impaired with ADHD, and they seem to work better.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the benefits. You flip that again, that when things are not dramatic or crazy or like it is, it has its challenges. And my wife has been the scaffolding in my life, for better or for worse. She's done an amazing job at helping me grow my business, having that faith in me, and to raise children and to get through all of that, and having partners who aren't neurotypical as such. There's pros and cons of that as well, because we will have a lens, and they will have a lens in any relationship. You're only seeing the world through your own lens anyway.
Yeah.
But having like structure is an incredible part of family life, but also an incredible part of having ADHD life. And I've noticed now, since we've had kids, my wife has had to take a bit of a backseat in just my structuring. And it's been one of the challenging things just in my life, is just knowing that the structure that I used to rely on heavily has other priorities. And
Mm.
so it's now me learning and to developing and revisiting that coaching that I've had when I was, in my early 20s. And structure for children is fundamental. And we go for walks every morning with our dogs.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 dogs. Or we do the drop off at school, or there's always an activity that we're doing. And this is what day is this happening? This is what's happened this time. And it's never going to be perfect. And there are days where it really sucks, and you
Yeah.
finish the day and you're like, oh my gosh, right? The structure is going to be such an important part in that process of ADHD parenting.
Yeah.
And also, again, like I tend to be the one who has a bit more patience with my son
Mm-hmm.
or my children, because a lot of reasons, but I also know that when I was out of control of my emotions, I just needed someone to listen to me. Needed
Right.
someone to just go, not even, explain. It's just like, I'll hold you. It's okay. And that's, and when I see that positive response, it's like, in a weird way, I'm giving that love back to me as a kid. It's
Mm-hmm.
so strange. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't get that as much as a child.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm loving my son, giving him the time of day. It's okay. And then it's a weird way. I feel like it just fills up that vacuum that I didn't have as a kid.
Mm. I think that's amazing. And your kids sound very lucky to have both you and your wife.
Thank you.
Um, I think so you're kind of talking about how structure is really important, and I
Mm.
agree, but that's a bit of a double-edged sword because sometimes it's that boring, consistent stuff that's
Yeah.
tricky.
Yeah.
Um, but also you've got this extra level of empathy as well, because
Yeah.
you're aware of what it was like for you when you're a kid and you're aware of what you needed. So you've got that opportunity to
Yeah.
give it to your kids.
And being an emotionally available parent, like
Mm,
that's something that I'm like going through my own journey of, soul searching and reading and understanding. And um, those are things that are really important to me and my next generation of children, and learning to forgive the nodes of the generation beforehand, because there wasn't much there wasn't much knowledge, there wasn't much time to have empathy or time to have that introspection. And we're in a blessed time, this age, as crazy as it is, that we have more of an emotional intelligence than our ancestors have ever
Hmm.
had.
Yeah.
Like, right. And so it's like a duty, responsibility, and obligation as a parent of my children, whatever way they come out in this world, to have that more emotional intelligence and emotional availability for them to get the next node or the next generation, um, to be better humans.
Mhm. Yeah, you've just summed it up perfectly.
Yeah.
That's my desire too. And I
Yeah.
think it's a great time to have
Mm,
access to all of this information that can
absolutely.
help us as parents to be able
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. And
And
like
so,
it's just again, it's like that's forgiveness of those undoings. That's that forgiveness of going, I didn't know any better.
yeah,
And only working with the best knowledge, equipment, technology, and emotional
yeah,
intelligence of what was available.
exactly.
Mm,
Yeah. I feel like you've really helped today. And I think our listeners will get so much from this conversation, hearing your perspective of growing up and then kind of bringing it full circle to what they can offer to their kids in the same way that you're doing. So
thank you.
thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Leanne. And thank you, Leanne, for what you're doing and what effort you're putting into this space too.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'll link your information below as well because
Yeah.
I know people listening would think that you are a great speaker. I can second all that feedback you've had before. Yeah, what kind of speaking do you offer for people if they were to look you up?
Look, I offer like for businesses, if they're looking for communication, might have a large message that they need to get across to large groups of people. And my
Hmm.
specialty is talking to large groups of people, delivering messaging that sticks. And it might
Yeah, great.
be toolbox talks, or it might be inductions, or it might be an HR related topic that they will have an external person that might have the information already there, and they just need someone who can deliver it in a way that's engaging, that is approachable, that is connecting with people to change what needs to be changed in that business.
Brilliant. So you found a skill and specialty in an area that lots of people are deathly afraid of. So
Yeah, I'm a marriage
that's
celebrant,
awesome.
and so I enjoy also on weekends. That's my role, is to guide people through their process of getting married as well, and that's another passion of mine. And crafting stories. Being a child growing up, one of the things I had was an imagination that
Mm.
was very colorful, and often it's I got a lot of awards for my writing skills. So applying that to a couple's journey and delivering a ceremony, and I get a lot of value out of that. And so that's another element that a bit of value I bring to other people's lives.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I'll put the notes in your website and that
Yeah,
kind of thing in the notes so people can find you. Yeah, because I'm sure they would love to hear from you again.
I'd love to hear from them. So, look, I'm very happy to be, if you want to have another chat later on or whatnot. I
Yeah,
really think this is a wonderful platform for you and others who are listening and getting a lot of value out of this.
wonderful. Thank you.
Welcome. All right. All the best.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Parent Like a Psychologist. If you found it helpful, please share on Instagram so other parents can benefit too, and tag me at Leanne Tran Psychology so that I can say a big thank you. Head over to leannetran.com.au to join the village for bite-sized psychology tips straight to your inbox. I really hope this podcast has brought a new perspective and you a step closer towards a calm parent and a thriving child. Have a delightful day.